The founder and CEO of Project Veritas and the author of a new book, American Muckraker, James O'Keefe, joins us now. Hi, James. How are you?
Hi, Glenn, and great quotes you've selected there on the intro.
Well, I think I think you're right on target. This is where America needs to be. I've been looking at the words of Eisenhower going into D-Day. The eyes of the world are upon us. And it is the time to either stand up and be counted or kneel down.
Well, that's why I say I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. This book, American Muckraker, I talk about the problems in journalism and the crisis of conscience that we as citizens face because we all suffer. In fact, the first chapter of this book is called Suffering. And people might be asking, why is James O'Keefe writing about that theme? Well, it's because people that blow the whistle on these institutions, a lot of the people come to us inside of these different departments, they do struggle and suffer. And I've personally struggled and felt pain enduring the defamation and the lawsuits and even the incarceration and most recently FBI raids against me. But, I think in life we all suffer. It's just a question of, do you want to follow your conscience or not? And I think it's better to follow your conscience and expose what's going on. So I'm trying to create a movement of these people to do this, and this book is kind of a handbook. American Muckraker is a handbook on how to do journalism living in clown world.
Explain what muckraker means, because it's an old-timey, early 20th century word.
Yeah, it's from about 100 years ago, or 120 years ago. Teddy Roosevelt, in this passage, Pilgrim's Progress, he talked about the man with the muck rake. And what I define it as basically a journalist who does expose reporting, making public what powerful people want kept private for the wrong reasons. And I distinguish a muckraker from a corporate journalist because many of the people in corporate journalism merely they act as representatives for those in power. They relay to us what they're told. And of course, you have to be skeptical of what you're told. You have to question what you're told. You can't just act in symbiosis with people in pharmaceutical companies and the government.
When did we stop thinking that journalism is printing something that someone else doesn't want printed and exchange that for public relations?
Well, the second chapter of this book, I call it Medium, and I do my best job of trying to tell the story in one chapter of the history of all media. I don't think there was a particular point in space and time. I think it's gotten horrifically bad in the last 2 decades, mainly because of the consolidation of tech and the decimation of the country's newspapers, lack of integrity in newsrooms. Bosses are not willing to do investigative reporting because investigative reporting is extremely expensive. Some of our investigations at Project Veritas cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. Mm-hmm. You can't generate a profit doing it. There's no profit in this sort of work. In fact, you usually get sued into oblivion, and most bosses settle lawsuits. I don't. We've never lost a lawsuit, but it's cost us an arm and a leg. So I actually traced it to economics. In the 1990s, ABC got sued by Food Lion Grocery for that undercover investigation. But journalists have been acting as ombudsmen since the time of FDR when he was in his wheelchair, or JFK. And so it's a long story, but I try to tell people how to break through it.
Can I just switch to the news that you're involved in? You were raided by the FBI in November because they said you had Ashley Biden's diary. Can you give us a quick synopsis of this and what the latest is with your fight against the New York Times?
Well, a source transmitted me the diary, a document of the diary, and I tried to corroborate it. I tried to authenticate it. I was fairly certain the diary belonged to Joe Biden's daughter, Ashley Biden. Most people don't realize Joe Biden has a daughter named Ashley Biden. I thought it was hers, but wasn't certain, so I chose not to publish it. This was in October of 2020. Fast forward a year, a federal agent showed up at my home with a search warrant. They put me in handcuffs, threw me against my hallway wall, raided my home, and took my 2 iPhones, just my iPhones, not my laptop or anything else. Very unusual, by the way, and particularly aggressive to do it against a journalist. Mm-hmm. On the search warrant, it said, accessory after the fact and misprison of a felony. Now, these are crimes that they are, I guess, looking for, but I have not been charged with anything. But to even do this to a reporter, accessory after the fact, is completely unconstitutional. The Supreme Court of the United States, in a case called Bartnicki v. Bopper, protects the right of a journalist to receive a document, even if that document was stolen by a third party, so long as the journalist had nothing to do with the theft of the document. I didn't think the thing was stolen. I assumed it wasn't. And it seems that, and it's coming out now, it wasn't. But Glenn, this was a horrible and egregious violation of my rights. And of course, what's even more egregious is that within moments of me being out of handcuffs, I got a text message from the New York Times national security reporter who somehow had got access to this information and knew the subject of a grand jury subpoena. So this is what we were talking about in this book. It's also just the nature of our circumstances these days, when the government teams up with media, which teams up with pharmaceutical companies, which teams up with the executive branch of government. It's really unjust.
So how do you fight it, James? I mean, I know what you're doing, and I really, truly hope that you win and you just take the whole system apart. But how does the average person deal with this? What do we do?
Well, that's what most people are very cynical. I would say the majority of people are at least afraid. And the first thing we do is we have to, tale as old as time, stop the fear. And yes, we're nothing, and we're not, they have tremendous power. But I argue in this book, throughout the book, that that's part because we give them that power, right? We're not alone. And there's a lot of good people in the government. Just 2 weeks ago, we broke a story inside the Department of Defense. There are whistleblowers. There are people who see the truth, but they're afraid to lose their pension or be persecuted or be defamed. So we got to stop wanting approval from these people. We got to stop be worrying about losing our Twitter account and Instagram. We have to do the right thing no matter what. And Veritas has this whole whistleblower program. We've raised people $500,000 every time they blow the whistle. There's life after whistleblowing now, and I think that's the future. I think it's a mass movement of truth tellers that bring reality, a cinema verite. The images are more powerful than their ability to manipulate words in a newspaper, and I really believe that.
You talk about tyranny, and you say muckraker's natural enemy is a tyrant. But I don't know if Americans really understand tyranny. What does it look like to you?
I think it looks like the scene in 1984, which I've reread multiple times, and I encourage everyone else to do it. And I cite it throughout this book when the protagonist, Winston, is being interrogated by the tyrant O'Brien. And O'Brien is saying to Winston, 2 + 2 = 5. And Winston says in return, no, 2 + 2 = 4. Everything inside of myself says it equals 4. And O'Brien is torturing him. And finally, Winston relents from the pressure and says, okay, 2 + 2 is whatever you want it to be. And it's a very important moment because the reality, there's only one truth. There's only one reality. You're not entitled to multiple realities in this life. And they're trying to coerce us through shame and humiliation and the terrifying power of the press to believe that 2 + 2 = 5. And I talk about that in a chapter called Power. And what changed for me was when I stopped seeking approval, when I no longer wanted to be liked by the New York Times, is when I was free.
How true it is. And it makes you more frightening. When you don't care and they understand you don't care, that terrifies them because they have no power over you. The name of the book is American Muckraker, Rethinking Journalism for the 21st Century, from the founder of Project Veritas, James O'Keefe. James, thank you so much. Best of luck.
Thank you, Glenn.
You bet. I like this is just another example of voices coming together and saying the same thing. When you hear it out of the mouths of 2 and 3 others, you know that there's something happening and something maybe we should pay attention to. He's saying the same things in just in a different way. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. That's how we lose. We're Americans. Since when do we let our fear guide us? You have to be calm, cool, collected. You have to You have to look at the intellectual outline of the, quote, battlefield, if you will. But you have to look at it without fear. I'm a guy who hid from most of my life. Up until I was 30, there's this great song from Billy Joel. I think it's The Mask. Is it The Mask or The Stranger? The Mask, I think. And it talks about, maybe it's The Stranger, and it talks about how we all wear masks, and we all do it at some degree or another. And because you're afraid of other people, or you're afraid of either what's in you or the void that you think is in you. That's all a lie. It's all an absolute lie. And my father used to say to me, you better fill in the I am. I'm like, what, Dad? What is it? Fill in the I am. What are you? I am what? Powerful? Strong? Or if you don't fill it in, believe me, people in your life will fill it in. And you will start to think, I am worthless. I am weak. I am helpless. I am powerless. Which one is it? I can tell you right now, it's not the second group. And I don't care what station in life you're at. I don't care what your education level is. I don't care. Everyone was born for a reason. And you have a circle of influence. And you're smart enough to figure it out. And you're not just a viewer. You're not somebody just in the stands. This one does require all of us on our feet, or we will all be on our knees. Which one are you? And don't fear it. I actually feel sorry, in a way, for my father's generation. My father's generation, he said, Glenn, you guys are facing something that, the world hasn't seen since World War II, at least. And I think it's going to be bigger and worse than that. And I said, thanks, Dad. And he said, but you know what? You're going to find out who you are. And he meant that in a good way. When you're not pushed against the wall, you just become milquetoast. You just become what you are. You just become whatever it is. You just kind of mold into it and you sink into the couch. But when your back is against the wall, you really do find out who you are. I hope to God our finding out isn't actually on a beach someplace like D-Day. But it will be something like that, either spiritually or physically. Be prepared, because we win.
If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to our channel so you'll be sure to see similar videos from BlazeTV, with the added bonus of signaling YouTube that your voice and opinion still matters. And if you're looking for more great conservative content, check out one of the 2 videos suggested here.